Hello and welcome, Pio fans, to another edition of the SHU Sports Report. I'm Dan Gardella.
And I'm Anthony Saccone.
It's hard to believe that we are already in the first week of February. Some teams have just begun their seasons, while others are wrapping up their regular season schedules and everything in between.
That's right, Dan, and we will kick off this week's show with some men's basketball as they hit the halfway point in NEC conference play just this past week. Men's basketball had a pair of home conference matchups this past week as the team finished 1-1 in their two affairs. They kicked the week off on Thursday night for Sacred Heart's annual Pack the Pit game against LIU Brooklyn. Sacred Heart came out firing on all cylinders as they took an early 9-4 lead. Their momentum would falter as LIU Brooklyn took the lead and never looked back. The Pioneers would come back within 2 after being down as much as 16 points in the second half. But the Blackbirds quickly shut down their comeback and went on to win by a final of 69-60. Leading the way for the Pios was freshman Alex Watson, who tied a career-high 15 points, and it was Davon Barnett who made SportsCenter with a top 10 monstrous block earlier in the game. The men's basketball team then welcomed NEC rival CCSU to the pit on Saturday afternoon, where the Pioneers were looking to end their losing streak. It was a back-and-forth contest in the first half, but in the second half, it was the Pioneers who finally hit their stride. Sacred Heart came out of the half on a 9-0 run, and they set the tone for the rest of the game. The Pioneers went on to defeat CCSU by a final of 67-54. It was the veterans who led the way for the Pioneers, as junior Sean Hohen and senior Mario Matasevich each led the Pioneers with 16 points apiece. And Matasevich hit a double-double, adding 10 rebounds to the contest. The Sacred Heart men's basketball team then travels to Fairleigh Dickinson for its next NEC matchup tonight at 7 p.m.
We'll stick with SHU hoops as the women's basketball team had a game at home and away. After falling to St. Francis Brooklyn last week, the Pioneers looked to get back into the win column as they welcomed in-state rival Central Connecticut State. Sacred Heart went back and forth with the Blue Devils throughout the game. However, the Pioneers headed into the locker room down 34-26. In the second half, the SHU came back and tied the game up for the first time with 5:20 to play, as freshman Abigail Cangoody's layup knotted the game at 60. The Pioneers then found themselves ahead by 1 with 1:19 to play, but were unable to finish the game strong and fell 73-71. In the loss, redshirt junior Candace Leatherwood led the way for SHU with 20 points and 8 assists. Looking to snap their 2-game losing streak, SHU headed to Bryant to take on the Bulldogs. This time, the Pioneers fell behind early and had to fight back. After trailing by 9 in the first quarter, SHU eventually managed to take the lead midway through the third on Leatherwood's 3, making it 32-31. They would extend the lead to 5 before Bryant went on a run to tie the game at 42 heading into the final quarter. The two teams would exchange baskets for the first 3.5 minutes before Bryant pulled ahead for good and took down the Pioneers by a final score of 60-56. It was Leatherwood once again who paced the Pioneers this time, scoring 26 points and grabbing 5 rebounds. The Pioneers will look to snap their 3-game skid when they return to the Pitt Center to play Wagner Saturday at 1 p.m. For more on Sacred Heart women's basketball, we have our very own Gino Ganello sitting with the women's basketball head coach.
Thanks, Dan. I'm here with women's basketball head coach Jessica Minetti. Coach, thanks for coming down and talking about your season so far.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. You know, coming into this season, you guys need a lot of contributions from some underclassmen. How do you feel like they matured after being tested early this season?
Well, I think early on, the underclassmen did a really good job just showing what they're capable of doing. We have some really talented underclassmen who have earned some starting positions, have contributed some great minutes, and I think they really were able to feel comfortable right away with the opportunity to play, and they really made the most of it. You know, as we have gone on throughout conference, we're still a little bit inconsistent, and that's just not with the underclassmen, that's kind of with everyone. So I think I'm looking now as we move forward for more consistency from everybody, including the underclassmen. You know, the basketball doesn't care if you're a freshman. The basketball doesn't care if you're a sophomore. Your opponents don't care. So, you know, let's show up, let's play, let's get after it, let's give great effort, and it doesn't matter, you know, if you're a freshman or a senior. Like, let's play to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, the first half of the season is for finding yourself a little bit. But now that part's over. How do you see your team finishing off the rest of the season and moving forward?
That's a great question. I think there's a lot of uncertainty as we move forward. We've had the last, well, I want to say the Bryant game, which we just played, we had great effort. It was great effort. We fell short. We lost by 4. But I was so proud of their effort. I think if we can come up with that kind of effort every day, we're going to really be able to compete. down the stretch. And I always tell the team, it doesn't really matter in February what your record is. In February, you want to be the team that gets hot. You want to be the team nobody wants to play in playoffs. So I think right now, we put a lot of stock into wins and losses over the last couple years. We've had a lot of success. This year, with a relatively young team, we're still trying to figure out what our identity is. We're still trying to figure out how to be more consistent. But if we can give great effort every night like we did yesterday, I think the next 7 games should be really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you always see those teams who get hot are sometimes the teams that move forward and have great ends to the season. Yeah. And now coming up, you have 2 favorable matchups, and I want to talk about the Wagner Seahawks this coming weekend. How do you feel like you guys match up against the Seahawks, and what do you guys have to do to come out with the W this weekend?
So in our first matchup, we struggled a little bit in the first half and really turned it on in the second half. We had a dynamite response to some challenges that I gave them in the locker room about kind of stepping it up a little bit. So I think we just need energy. I think our matchup with Wagner is a good matchup. They have a very dominating inside post player. She's very, very good. I think we have a great game plan against her. So I'm excited to see if we can execute that game plan, if we can force them into the amount of turnovers that we forced them into last time. I think that we had 20 plus turnovers that we forced Wagner into. So I think the matchup will be good. If we can score, that'd be great. I'd love for us to score. I'd love for us to shoot over 35% for one game because we're taking great shots. We're just not able to put them in the basket. But to play a complete game, I think the matchup is really good. It should be exciting. But if we execute game plan, I definitely think we can come out with a win.
Well, you mentioned energy there in the first bit of your answer. Moving on to Monday and Pack the Pit, just from an atmosphere perspective, how important is it for the fans to come out in full force and support you guys on Monday as you take on Mount St. Mary's?
So we have the best fans here, ever. I always talk about the energy in the Pitt Center. I always talk about how exciting it is to have such great fans, whether it's fans in the community, it's the student body, it's the administration, our faculty, they all come out. And hearing that type of energy, usually when you're playing, you're so locked in. And when we're in the Pitt Center and something great happens and I hear this roar of the crowd, it kind of snaps me into reality. And I'm like, oh my gosh, look at how incredible this is. And I know our team gets really hyped about it. You see how our players on the bench have great energy and they just feed right off the crowd. So it's huge. All the support we get here really does help us in these big moments to find ways, whether we're up or we're down, to be able to just keep playing with great energy. And I think that that's a big testament to the tradition here that's been created with the support that all the athletes give each other and just how great our student body is.
Well, we wish you guys the best of luck the rest of the season. That's all the time we have for today. We want to thank you for coming down and spending some time with us.
Thank you so much.
Be sure to get down to the Pitt Center Saturday the 10th for a 1 p.m. tip. Also, make sure to dress in all white for the annual women's basketball Pack the Pit white game on Monday as they host Mount St. Mary's for a 6 p.m. tip-off. If you can't make it to the game, the show will be broadcast nationally on ESPN3. After the commercial break, we'll have more Sacred Heart sports action coming your way with this week's Update Corner.
Welcome back to the SHU Sports Report. I'm Ryan Toohey for this week's Update Corner. We're going to start things off with men's volleyball as the team hosted Belmont Abbey up at the Pitt Center on Friday night. Sacred Heart defeated the Crusaders 3-1, thus giving them their first victory of the season. The Pioneers rolled over the Crusaders in sets 1 and 3, winning by more than 10 points. After a 25-22 second set win by Belmont Abbey, the match was automatically pushed into extra sets. The Piles looked to end the match in 4, but found themselves fighting into extra points with the game tied at 26-all. Redshirt junior opposite hitter Emerson Wamans provided a kill, which allowed the Piles to take back the lead 27-26. Needing just one more point to win, sophomore middle hitter Rob Chatterton and freshman outside hitter Sean Tischler were able to block a hit, giving the Piles a set win 28-26 and the game 3-1. The men's volleyball team travels to nationally ranked Penn State Friday, February 16th to open up the Pennsylvania road trip. Now we'll move on to the lanes as the women's bowling team traveled down south to Arlington, Texas this past weekend for the Prairie View A&M Invitational. Sacred Heart was one of 12 teams that competed in the tournament. On the first day of the tournament, the Piles played in 5 matchups, going 3-2, and finished in 3rd place on the day behind Arkansas State and Sam Houston State. The Piles defeated 19th-ranked Louisiana Tech, 8th-ranked Maryland Eastern Shore, and 2nd-ranked McKendree. The next day was a struggle for Sacred Heart. They won 1-4 in their 5 matchups. Their lone win came against 17th-ranked North Carolina A&T. Overall, the Piles went 4-6 in the tournament and finished in 8th place with a grand total of 9,939 points while averaging 198.8 points per game. The bowling team's next matchup will be the weekend of Friday, February 23rd, as they travel up to Farmingdale, New York for the Northeast Conference meet. Now we hit the water as the swimming and diving team traveled to St. Francis, Brooklyn on Saturday for their final dual meet of the season. The Pioneers came away with the victory 129-91, finishing at 7-7 in dual meets for the year. The 7 dual meets wins are second most in program history. The event was highlighted by the performances of junior Nicole Pergolotti and freshman Fiona Maxwell, who each took home a pair of wins. In the diving events, Pergolotti won the 1-meter and 3-meter board event. On the other hand, Maxwell won the 400 individual medley as well as the 100 butterfly. In the 100 butterfly, sophomore Nicole Rudis followed Maxwell, finishing in 2nd place. Senior Anna Brown also won in stroke staking, first in the 100 backstroke. Additionally, sophomore Lawrence Sommers won in the 200 sprint freestyle, finishing in 1 minute 55 seconds, .09. And the Pioneers also won as a team in the 200 freestyle relay. The swimming and diving team will now look ahead to the NEC Championships at the Nassau County Aquatic Center in East Meadow, New York. The event runs for 4 days from Wednesday, February 21st to Saturday, February 24th. Now we move on to equestrian. The teams began their spring season this past weekend with Western traveling to UConn on Saturday and Huntsy traveling to CCSU on Sunday. Western was the reserve high point team in both of their competitions. In the first competition, juniors Logan Morris and Megan Griffin won the novice horsemanship competition in their respective sections. Senior Cecilia Mathin won the intermediate 2 horsemanship section B title. In the second competition, sophomore Olivia Zwemmerman captured the novice horsemanship section B title. In Huntseat's meet on Sunday, senior Devin Connolly won the open fences section A competition. Freshman Leah Mascola won the novice fences B section, while sophomore Annie Bergery took the novice fences and novice flat section C. Additionally, junior Carrie Johnson won open fences section C, and sophomore Emily Scrobe won the walk trot section A. Hunseat finished as the high point team with 42 points. Both teams compete next on Saturday, February 10th, with Western traveling to Mount Holyoke and College, and Hunseat travels to UConn. And that's all the time we have for this week's Update Corner. I'm Ryan Toohey. After the break, Dan and Anthony will be standing by with updates on both SHU ice hockey teams.
Welcome back to the SHU Sports Report. We'll talk a little ice hockey as Dan gets us all caught up on the men's ice hockey team.
That's right, Anthony. The men's ice hockey team had almost 2 weeks of rest after playing their last game against Air Force on January 19th. Looking to extend their 2-game winning streak, the Sacred Heart men's ice hockey team welcomed in Robert Morris for a 2-game series at Webster Bank Arena. It was a rough weekend for the Pioneers as they dropped both contests to the Colonials. In both games, Robert Morris will get on the board early and not let the Pioneers get any momentum. In Game 1 of the weekend, Robert Morris will get on the board first with a first-period goal. After another RMU goal, the Pioneers responded with a goal from redshirt sophomore Jason Cotton, making it 2-1. Unfortunately, SHU was unable to get any more offense and fell to Robert Morris 4-1. In the second game of the weekend, it was Robert Morris again getting on the board first and kept SHU off the scoreboard for the first 2 periods. In the third period, down 3-0, sophomore Vito Bavaro would find the back of the net to give the Pioneers the first and only goal of the afternoon. SHU looks to turn things around as they travel to Niagara for a 2-game series this weekend. We'll keep it on the ice as Anthony gives us an update on the women's ice hockey team and their successful weekend.
That's right, Dan. We last left off with the women's ice hockey team as they look to improve on their already extremely successful 25-1 season. Women's ice hockey had a 2-game series this past weekend against Franklin Pierce, and it was merely a perfect weekend for the Pios, completing a 2-0 sweep. Halfway through the first period of Friday night's game, the Ravens broke the scoring, but less than 3 minutes later, the Pioneers found themselves on a power play, and it was sophomore Jane Lewis who connected with fellow classmate Olivia Bryant on a one-timer that would find the back of the net. The game remained at 1 apiece until the third period, where the Pioneers broke through with yet another power play goal, as sophomore Victoria Grimmer scored the game-winning goal for the Pioneers. Goaltender Sarah Urban was a rock in the net as she stopped 20 total pucks. On Saturday, the Pioneers picked up right where they left off, as just 2 minutes into the game, junior forward Katie Stuvey scored on an incredible one-timer. Franklin Pierce would later counter with a goal of their own, but it was the Pioneers who responded with 2 unanswered goals. Their second goal of the day came on a 5-on-3 power play as senior forward Megan Kabalka cleaned up a rebound, passed it to a wide-open Brittany Smith, who banged home the go-ahead goal. Later on, it was freshman forward Lexi Edwards who would score on a rebound goal, and the Pioneers went on to win this contest by a final of 3-2. The Pioneers hit the road this weekend for a 2-game series against St. Ansem, and the Pioneers look for win number 24 on the season this Friday at 7:30 p.m.
Quite the ending to this week's show.
And I have a feeling they are not done yet, as they have 4 more total games in their regular season.
On that note, we'll end today's show. Make sure to tune in next week for all of your Sacred Heart sports action, news, and highlights. From all of us here at the SHU Sports Report, I'm Dan Gardella.
And I'm Anthony Saccone. Thank you for watching.